Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us. I am so excited to be here today. Apologies for a little bit of a late start, but we are so excited to be here today. My name is Brinton. I am a senior content marketer here at Handshake, and I love to bring live student events with fabulous colleagues who have different disciplines in the world of tech. Um, Here for you to answer questions. So I'm really excited to get us started today. Just as some, basic level setting, we are super excited to talk for about 30 minutes here. For the next 20 minutes or so, you can go ahead and submit your questions using our Q&A box, and we will try to get to as many as we can today before we wrap. But anything we don't get to, we will use to inform future events like this, future content on the Handshake feed, and we're really excited to spend some time with Gabe today. And just a reminder as well that when you submit questions, you won't be able to see anyone's questions except for your own until we mark them as answered. So please don't think we're ignoring you. We are not. We're just trying to get through as many as we can, fielding them on the back end. So with that, Gabe, can you go ahead and introduce yourself? I'm so excited to chat with you today.
Yeah, thanks, Brenton. So hi everybody. My name is Gabe Forgie, and I'm a product manager here at Handshake. I graduated from Arizona State University in 2019 with a degree in information technology, which for me was like I always liked computers and wanted to do something with computers, but I looked at the computer science track and it had too much math in it. And so information technology was like swap some of that math for like some business entrepreneurship and some like networking tech things and things like that. So still in the same realm. But then that Arizona State is a Handshake partner university, and so they created a Handshake account for me back in 2019, and then through that account, Handshake reached out to me and invited me to apply to a support contractor position, which I accepted that and did well in that position and moved to a full-time role there on our support team, and have worked across like EDU, tech support, employer support, student support, taking support tickets and phone calls and things like that. And then, long story short, ended up being able to do an internal transfer into a product management role, and have like learned how to be a PM here at Handshake.
I love a hired on Handshake story. I think that's so exciting. As somebody who's talked to a lot of people who've gotten their roles on Handshake, it's really cool that you had the journey from basically being a student user to then a support team member where you really, I mean, to be on support, you have to like know the product in and out. You have to know everything about it because you have to basically troubleshoot everybody's problems, right?
Yeah.
I find that the support team members at Handshake are the people that I turn to whenever I have a question. And I've worked here for going on 5 years at this point, and I feel like I know nothing about the product compared to the folks on the support team. And so that's what a great kind of pathway into product management. I would love to hear, and I know we're getting some questions in as well, but I would just love to hear in your own words how you think that support role set you up for success in a product management role, and maybe how that primed you for that internal transfer. Can you talk about that?
Yeah. I think it really set me up for success a lot and made it so that I could excel quickly at product management. I'm sure we'll talk more about some of the like skills and things that I've learned about how to be a PM, but I think a lot of it has been like starting with a base of deep knowledge about the product. In my case, was like it gave me a big advantage. Where then I still, of course, needed to learn how to do this new role, but I was able to bring a lot of context and a lot of product management too is about understanding like what are the things that are the most frustrating of the like 100 things that people wish that you would work on, like what's the one that you need to work on right now, and being on support and hearing from people like this is like stopping me from applying to a job, like that type of perspective was really helpful in the early days for me.
Yeah, you get that sense of urgency because you're dealing with people who are panicked and really dealing with real stakes, right? You're
Yeah.
dealing with people who are trying to apply to jobs, who are trying to hire for critical roles, who are trying to host a career fair that starts in an hour and they're having a problem. Like the support helps you understand that urgency. So that's a really cool perspective. We're getting some questions about breaking into product management, and just generally the transition into the corporate world. Do you have any advice for somebody who might be navigating kind of their first steps into a corporate space?
Yeah, it's been interesting, like, seeing the different people that I've worked with over the few years that I've been in PM, kind of space at Handshake. Like, I don't think that anybody who is on our product team now or in the past that I can think of, like, went to school thinking, "I'm gonna be a product manager, and, like, here's the path that I should take." One of my best managers, it was somebody who was I think, a history major and worked as a librarian for 20 years, and then through happenstance ended up as a product manager at a company, and then kind of like worked his way up and was like a lead product manager here for a few years. Incredible person, great guy, and awesome product manager who like was not formally trained for it at all. And I think everybody in this kind of role has a similar story to like mine or to his, where like we you can kind of go backwards and trace certain skills or jobs like customer service experience, technical experience, like understanding how software engineering and tech companies work are all helpful. But I think it's like it's more about like the personality and the type of like approach that you take to problem solving that makes somebody be good for product management.
Yeah, I think that's a really great kind of primer for one of the next questions that I'm going to ask you, which is, what advice would you give to a new grad who has no internship PM experience? Like, do you have any advice for kind of breaking into the world of product management? And would you recommend starting in another area and transitioning over, or kind of talk through your process there?
Yeah, I don't think there's a playbook for it, which is probably like it would be nice if there was just a like do this, this, and this. Like here's the checklist to be a product manager. Unfortunately, it's not that simple with this type of role. It's one of those where there's like I think for every probably 10 or 20 software engineers at a company, there's like one or two product managers. So whereas in software engineering, it's like a pretty clear path where you like get one of a few degrees or do like a boot camp or do some online courses, and then once you know how to do these things, now you're eligible for this job. With product management, it's more like you need to have sort of like a varied set of experiences and be able to prove like in an interview or in like a jam session or something like that that you know how to like solve problems and ask like the right questions about those problems to understand what the real problem is. And so I think it's more of like a learned skills thing. Like I bet there are some good courses, and I know there's a lot of like good newsletters and things like that you can subscribe to learn more about it. But I don't think that there's like a sort of like one size fits all path to do it.
For sure. And I have to say, as a marketer who's creeping ever closer to product marketing, I think that is the nature of Handshake is you learn different skills and you move into different
Yeah.
areas. And I'm definitely moving more toward a product marketing role. And PMs are my best friend. Like I'm realizing that you guys ask the right questions, you know the right way to kind of think about the give and take and what has to be put on pause if we're going to move something forward. Like just the way that you think is really fascinating and I think a really important skill that, it's hard to teach, but you pick it up through, the experiences that you have on the job. So I definitely love to watch y'all work because I think it's a really interesting role. And we have somebody asking, like, what kind of software do you use at Handshake? Like, what kind of software might a PM use in their role? Can you just talk through maybe some of the different pieces of tech that you use in your role to day to day?
Yeah. So it assume that this depends the specific types of like the specific products that you use probably depends on the company. But imagine that there's some consistency between Handshake and other companies with like every company has Slack or Teams, which is like a group chat thing where you can create channels about specific topics. And I probably spend like half of my day some days in Slack, just like there's a channel for a project that I'm working on, and there's a channel for like collaboration between like my design team and the salesperson who we're trying to like solve a problem for, and there's a separate channel for like planning out our next update that we're going to share with our exec team. And so it's like bouncing around between Slack channels. Otherwise, it's a lot of Google Docs. So like spreadsheets to map out something for a project. Like here's all the little things that we have to think about and some notes on them. or a Google Doc for like a product requirements document, a PRD. That's a really common one for PMs, to like fill out like what are we doing, why are we doing it, what is going to be the impact, how are we going to measure it, all of those things like written up into a Google Doc. Other companies might use like Confluence or Notion, but all sort of the same goal that they're getting out of that doc. And otherwise, it's going to be whatever tools I am sort of collaborating with somebody else inside. So like designers often use like a Figma, which is a design tool to create designs, but you can also like leave comments in it and say like, on this section, what if you tried this thing? You can have a little comment thread with a designer. And then with engineers, we use Jira. There's plenty of other tools for project management, but basically like creating a ticket for a task, and there can be like comments on the ticket and like a status. And so that's where I can keep track of what the engineers in my squad are working on.
Yeah, and I have to say that the PRDs feel like the source of truth that everyone relies on the the PMs for, and I've seen some that are really robust documents for the more complicated the product, right? The more complicated the feature, the longer the PRD is, and the more
Yeah.
detailed you have to be. Awesome. We're getting some questions about your interview process. I know you did an internal transfer to from support into PM. Did you still have like technical interview questions? Did you still go through an interview process? And can you talk about that a little bit?
Um, I honestly don't remember the details of my transfer interview. It was also in 2020, which
Sure.
everything's weird in 2020. So
Hmm.
there was a lot of like, I think in my case it was like a lot of the things that I had learned and worked on through the course of 2020, which was a very weird year where everybody was just trying to figure things out, made it like a clear case for me to try to move over to this space. But I have been on interview panels in several occasions since then where we've like hired product managers, and I think the main part of an interview that usually other product managers get included on, so the ones that I've seen the most, are what's called a jam session. And that's where, in most cases, for like an experienced product manager that's coming from the same role at another company, we would have them create a presentation, like a slide deck in PowerPoint or Google Slides, that lists out a product that they built or a project that they worked on, and what steps that they took to plan for that, like what inputs did they account for to make sure that like they were getting the right sort of customer feedback and handling the right internal business needs for like revenue generation or user acquisition or things like that. And then like the process that they took to get that product into market. And usually that's like a jam session where it would be like an ICPM like me, which would be like an individual contributor. We call that IC. And then we would have like our chief product officer and then like another exec on the call, usually doing those jam sessions.
Yeah, that's great. And we've gotten a lot of follow-up questions. But I'd like to start with somebody asked about whether you think having a portfolio when applying to PM roles is necessary. And I know you just kind of talked through the ability to demonstrate a project that you've worked on and something that you've brought to market, and the role that you played, and kind of the thought process through every step, the ability to kind of show your work there.
Yeah.
Would you recommend having a portfolio if you were applying to PM roles?
Yeah, I think that sounds like a great idea. I imagine anybody who's applying to like their first PM role coming out of college is not going to have actual product management experience. Hopefully, you're able to get an internship that you can use to add to that portfolio.
Mhm.
Um, but some of the other types of things that I remember were helpful for me to generally get hired at Handshake to start with, and to kind of bolster my move to product management, were my experiences working in customer service at Starbucks. I was a barista for 5 years and had a few sort of like achievements that I did through that time, where I was like the barista champion for the Southeast region of Starbucks. And that was like a big competition that I kind of just wrote up a couple of lines about, like how much work I put into preparing for that and talking to executives as a part of that competition because they were the judges and that sort of thing. A lot of it is just like storytelling, like figuring out, you probably have all done something that could apply to product management in a really helpful way, and figuring out like how to tell that story to sort of connect those dots to the ones that the company has listed in the job description, and figuring out like where's that kind of mesh. that's probably what I would recommend for a portfolio.
Yeah, for sure. I think that's a great if anybody on the line has attended more than one of these AMAs with folks who are in different technical roles, and we often ask this question about um how to kind of break in or build things on your resume if you don't have directly applicable experience. And one of the common threads that I've heard from people at all levels and kind of in all different roles at this point is, you have to take the experiences that you do have, whether they're in class or whether they're academic projects, whether it's volunteering or working in food service, and find a way to kind of tell the story of how that relates to the skills that are in demand for the role that you're applying to. I know we had Leah Kim a couple of weeks ago talk about how she had never actually worked in software engineering when she was applying, but she had done volunteering at an animal shelter and had like built code that could help like streamline processes within the animal shelter. And it was just a volunteer project. And that related to the work that she does now in software engineering. So definitely seems like that's a storytelling is half the battle, I feel like. And as a storyteller myself, I think that's a really important skill to build. So thanks for talking about that, Gabe.
For
Um,
sure.
Speaking of, all the different software that you use to kind of interact with all the different stakeholders you have, we have somebody asking, which departments do you have to be in communication with frequently as a PM? And I feel like the answer might be more, which departments are you not in contact with all the time? I feel like you guys are the glue
Yeah.
that holds everything together.
Yeah, that's a great question that like the top level answer to it. And this is one thing for like general PM skills that I love to share with people is like figuring out the question behind the question, or like kind of asking follow-up questions to figure out why. So like the top level answer is just all of them. Like I have to communicate with pretty much every department besides like the sort of internal support. Like I don't really have to communicate with our internal IT department that manages people's computers and accounts and things very often. But sales, customer success, support, our executives, and sort of like business leaders and finance and all of those things are all dependent on the project, are different inputs.
Mhm.
But we had a cool conversation about this recently at the product team recently got together in our San Francisco office for an onsite, and we were kind of talking about product craft and ways to sort of optimize for all the different stresses that we are dealing with, like as a business trying to continue to grow here. And one of the things that one of our leaders said that resonated with me was like, it's easy to look at being a PM as like the hub of a wheel where everything on the wheel is sort of a, something sticking out from that hub. And so the PM is like, if this person wants to talk to this person, then they have to go through the PM, and the PM has to be in the middle. And one of the important skills to learn as a PM is how to like develop the outside wheel around it, so that you can say like, you two are here, you need to talk together, and like I can connect you. Like because when you have to talk to all of those people and deal with all of those stakeholders, a lot of your job and a lot of your day to day ends up becoming just like scheduling meetings and facilitating meetings where other people are talking and you're not really. And so figuring out how to balance that and point and say like, this is a conversation that I need to be in, this is a conversation that you two need to have, and then send me the notes after, like that's something that has helped a lot.
Yeah, that's a really important skill, because it's very easy to get bogged down in just endless meetings forever and never actually have the time to get your work done as well.
Yeah.
Awesome. So we have a question from Lindsay, which is, I feel like there's often an overlap between project management and product management. What's been your experience with the delineation between these roles? And do you ever get like, do people ever get them confused?
Yeah, I think people get them confused, and I think there is overlap in reality. Like it's in some cases for me, like some of my days are just project management. Some of my weeks and some of my months are just project management. It depends on what I'm working on and what sort of stage that project is in. Some things that we work on are things that are like, I'm having to go talk to a bunch of customers and figure out what to build and why we should build this over this. But some things are just like, we know what to build and we know that we're building it, and I just need to make sure that we are building it like on time and that the deadlines are being communicated to the right stakeholders and that we're like making the right training materials to share externally and those sorts of things. Um, I think the main difference that is between like project and product management is more about like the user stories and like understanding like the why of why we're working on something over something else. So like project management is like a very tactical role, that's like very important to be a good project manager and be able to take a team of people and coordinate them towards the same goal. But product management is like to figure out what the project should be. You have to be able to talk to customers and understand like what are the problems that are the most important, uh, and then be able to like communicate all of those things to internal stakeholders and explain to them like we should do this instead of this and all of that. Before you get to the project management stage, there's a lot of work that a product manager can do to set that up.
Yeah, that's great. And so we have quite a few questions, and I'm trying to figure out which direction to pull us in. So bear with me while I kind of filter through some of these. But one thing I think you can talk through while I continue to look at the submissions here is, do you have any advice for like technical questions that PMs can prepare for interviews? I know you mentioned the jam sessions as a kind of critical part of a PM interview at Handshake. Are there any common questions that you have seen asked in interviews that you would recommend people maybe get in the mindset to answer if they're applying to PM roles?
Yeah, I think most of the jam sessions that I've been in, that's something that I've a lot of times tried to observe for myself too, because it's like I'm in this session, we're interviewing this external person, but also this is one of the few times where I'm like in a call with just a couple of people, and one of them is like my boss's boss's boss. So I'm trying to pay attention, like what is this person saying? What questions are they asking this person? Because those questions are probably also applicable to me for like trying to earn a promotion, because this person is going to be a decision maker for that too.
Sure.
Most of those questions end up being related to things like business impact and like the aspect of product management that is like deciding what not to do. Um, so not so much technical questions, I think, in those cases, but more like you've got a bunch of things that you could have done to solve this problem. Like something maybe simple that a lot of people would be able to think of is like in Google search when you type in words and it gives you suggestions, like which suggestions does it give you? There's so much time and effort and realistically money involved in how that works, especially depending on the product. And so many products that have like different kind of inputs to those types of searches. Like, are you searching for jobs on Handshake, or are you searching for general things on Google, or are you searching for like an Amazon listing for a canopy? Is something that I was buying a new canopy for the beach this summer. Like, deciding what shows up in those things is something that you could spend years on trying to figure out, like what is the best result to put here and why. Um, so that's the type of question that I saw asked a lot in those jam sessions,
Yeah.
where like trying to figure out like what are all of the things that you thought of doing and then decided not to do, and why did you not do those things. Like those are sometimes more important than like what's the one thing that you decided to do and why did you decide to do that one. So like figuring out how to kind of push aside the cruft and the dust and focus on something is like more important than actually like, okay, now we got that thing and we get it over the finish line.
Yeah. I think that's a great, I also think watching the questions that your bosses care about is a really important way to observe as you're kind of like laddering up in your own career. Once you're in a role and you're involved in interview processes, that's a really essential thing to do as well. Awesome. And we've got quite a few questions here. A lot of which are focused a little bit on the essential role as PM. I'm gonna kind of weave two in together. One says, there's so much work to juggle as a PM, the way you explained the hub of the wheel. How do you manage your time? And then another from Carlos is, do you ever deal with tension between teams? And how do you think about communicating and moving a product forward when something comes up there? So I think both of these have a little bit to do with almost more like soft skills, which I think are essential, but I'd love for you to talk a little bit about that part of your role.
Yeah, I think those are both things that like everybody in this space is not perfect at, and kind of the different levels of product management, like the levels, several levels above me, the people that are like better than me, so to speak, at the job are the ones that are better at those things than I am. So not an expert, but definitely have tried a lot of things and have kind of started to find what is sticking for me. like I've tried to use tools like Asana, which is like a task management. You put in a bunch of to-do list items and set due dates on them. But like having this, the 10th tool that I have to log in every day and check things, I ended up just like missing things because I wouldn't check Asana. The thing that has worked the most for me, for specifically for like the time management side of that question, is using Google Calendar, which is the tool that we all already use at Handshake internally for scheduling meetings with each other. I can put in a like focus time block, and that will show up to somebody else that's trying to schedule time with me. They can see like Gabe has focus time today for like this morning I had one to go through a document that one of my product marketing partners had like asked me some questions in last week, and I was like, I need to get to those questions. I don't have time to do it today or tomorrow or Monday, but I do have an hour on Tuesday morning. And so I blocked off that hour. And then that's like unless it's really important, you don't schedule time with me during that time. So I kind of just do that. Like whenever I have something, I just find like the next sort of hour block that I can drop a focus time piece into. And that's been working well for me recently.
Yeah, that's great. And can you talk a little bit about, navigating stakeholders and, sometimes I have observed it as well. There are some times where marketing wants one thing, sales wants one thing, go to market teams and R&D teams and all of those like can't necessarily align, and there are sometimes tensions and you have to kind of mediate those tensions. Can you talk a little bit about the role a PM plays in dealing with kind of conflict at work?
Yeah. One of the biggest things that I have been working on recently with my direct manager is like being okay with not having an answer right away is something that feels very unnatural to me, at least. Is like part of like how I got where I am is figuring out like how to have all the answers and remember all the details about the product. Um, and so having that be something where like sometimes somebody's going to ask you a question that you just have not even thought about before. And it needs to be okay to say, like, I don't know, let me get back to you. Like, that's something that I've been just recently trying to figure out how to get comfortable with. That has actually helped me a lot and improved my confidence because it kind of turns out to look worse if you give an answer but you're sort of rambling because you haven't thought about it very much until just that moment, and you're like kind of speaking off the top of your head, but it's not a well-formed answer and it doesn't cover this other aspect that they were trying to get at. um, so yeah, I'd say like one of the most important ways to help manage stakeholders has been for me to just like prioritize what are the things that I need to do to get a better answer to you later. Because sometimes it's just saying like I don't know, and I'll get back to you, and then remembering to put like a focus time block on my calendar next week to like go do some research or dig through documents, and then make sure to get back to that person.
Yeah, I find that some of the people I respect the most are the ones who are confident saying, "I don't know that right now, but let me get back to you," and like come back with an informed opinion and recommendation for something. I think it's a really essential skill to be able to know that you don't know everything and learn how to learn and then take that forward and inform the product.
Yeah.
Um, awesome. So I know we only have a couple of minutes here. We have a great question that I think is, beyond product management and just generally in terms of career pathing. Do you have any piece of advice that you would give to someone who's about to graduate in a week? And thank you for your time, this person says.
Congrats on graduating. I mean, huge. Like, I think a lot of people don't think about how much work it is to even manage to like graduate with any degree, let alone like a big bachelor's degree. I know when I was first in that graduation period, like you're going to end up with this gap where it feels like you need to be doing things and accomplishing things, but you're not going to be able to accomplish things because you're going to just have to like apply to 100 jobs to get a couple of interviews and stuff, and it can feel like very grueling and grindy. It's definitely cliche to say like don't give up, but I think the one of the best ways to kind of present yourself is for each opportunity, remember that like the people you're talking to don't know about all of the grind that you've been going through. And it's definitely helpful to have empathy for each other and maybe have some respectful communication of like this has been a really hard week or something like that. But if you're going into an interview, like remember that this recruiter is not the recruiter that like didn't respond to you last week. Like this is another person who has like their own goals for their company that they're trying to accomplish. And I think building that empathy is a big part of, especially like product management. But I think that would probably apply to like some kind of any interview process.
Yeah, I think that's a great note to end on. Gabe, thank you so much. We have several people who are saying thank you so much for the time and the motivation. And definitely, I feel like I learned a lot. Thank you for sharing kind of your journey and your guidance there. I want to make sure that everybody in the chat, we did share our post-event survey. I was told that this event did not populate in the survey immediately, so please refresh it and it should be there now. And make sure that you give us the feedback here today so that we know what you'd like to see in future events, who you'd like to hear from, different roles that you'd love to learn more about. We'd love to tap more people like Gabe to share their experience and their guidance about their roles. And in the meantime, you can feel free to follow us on Handshake to see upcoming AMAs. We have one tomorrow with an engineering leader from Shopify and formerly of Reddit. Excited to chat with him as well. And with that, Gabe, thank you so much for taking the time to share with us today. This was a fantastic conversation, and it's always a pleasure to get the chance to chat with you on a Tuesday morning. So
Yeah,
thank
thank
you
you.
for being here.
Yeah,
All right.
thank you for all the questions. It was fun.
Awesome. All right. Have a great week, everybody. See you later.